Joining us now on 710 KURV, we're talking about the discrete erosion of U.S. household savings. And I got questions about who I call Evil Ron Paul, the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. And I got those questions for our guest, and his name is Daniel Elmore, and he's a commentator for Young Voices, formerly the Data and Analytics Coordinator at Chalkboard Review, a student of economics, a constant student of economics, and he's well educated to talk about this topic here. So the discrete erosion of household savings, this is your article in the Washington Examiner. How did this come to be? How did you scout this out?
Sure. So I've been watching household savings throughout the pandemic, and what we've seen is a huge spike in personal savings during the pandemic whenever we had these stimulus packages. However, they would always fall back down, and what we've seen now is that they've fallen below pre-pandemic levels all the way down to $766 billion, which is about $300 billion less than we came into the pandemic with.
What's causing all this?
Sure. So there's many causes of this, but the main one that everyone's talking about is inflation, of course. Of course, while we have seen inflation come down over the past few months, people are still battling with inflation from 13 months, 14 months ago, and while that's not captured in the year-over-year statistics, people are still having to work with it.
Now, I don't know, how do you fix a problem like this, right? Because it's hard to save. It's always been hard to save. It's one of those things that you always say you're going to get around to if you're not already doing it. Like, oh, I mean to do it, and what are driving these spending habits?
Sure. So there's two main ways for people to deal with this, and neither of them are great. The first one is to incur more debt. Now, currently in the United States, households have $17 trillion in in debt. So what we're seeing is that people cannot take out more debt, but people also are having trouble saving and cutting down their expenses due to inflation.
Joining us on 710 KURV, he's got an article in the Washington Examiner titled "The Discrete Erosion of U.S. Household Savings." His name is Daniel Elmore, joining us on your 956 drive home. Davey, go ahead.
Let me ask a question for clarification. When you say discrete, what does that mean, and why do you say it's discrete?
Sure. So many of the talking heads on all these big news channels are talking about the triumph of Bidenomics.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is that while a lot of the top line numbers are great for the administration, there's a lot of underlying numbers, such as the personal savings statistics that I cite in this article, that are not looking so good for the Biden administration.
What are some of those numbers? What can you tell us?
Sure. So, like, just on Friday, we saw the jobs report come out, and it came out very hot with 353,000 jobs added to the workforce, as well as a 3.7 unemployment rate. But what we also saw was that the labor force participation rate has continued to decline and is still below pre-pandemic levels.
Labor participation is still below pandemic?
Yes, it has still not recovered from the pandemic.
What does that mean, labor participation, just to be clear?
Sure. So labor participation is really important because that determines how many people you can have working for you. But if you have a low unemployment rate and a low labor force participation rate, that means the unemployment rate is being artificially lowered because of the low labor force participation.
So why has it felt recently, Davey, I'm sorry if you have a question, but let me jump in here. We're speaking with Daniel Elmore, who is a writer in the Washington Examiner, who knows a lot about the economy. He's got an article titled "The Discrete Erosion of U.S. Household Savings," our guest right now on 710 KURV. Why is it that it feels like there's this strange accordion effect, I guess you could say, or, like, not all the cars on the train are moving at the same pace, and they're kind of just bumping into each other. What's going on here?
Sure. So what we're saying is that there's a lot of disconnect between a lot of the urban areas, a lot of the rural areas, a lot of the high income earners, and a lot of low income earners. So while many people who are like on these big news channels are happy with the current economy and are not worried about their current savings rate. We have less than, or about 50% of people who have less than $2,000 in their savings account right now.
It's kind of always,
and I'm one of them.
We've always
guilty.
But our savings rate, in my memory, has always been not very good. Certainly not as well, not very good. Couldn't you turn that around and say, well, that's a vote of confidence in the American economy. I don't have to have a lot of savings because I can always get a job or blah, blah, blah.
Well, sure. Our personal savings rate has been, right now is at 3.7%, but prior to the pandemic, it was closer to 7%. To get back to 3.7%, that's about what it was during the Great Financial Crisis. So, yes, while people may be happy to have lower savings right now, there's going to come a point where there's going to be a recession. Now, whether that be 6 months from now or 5 years from now, nobody knows. But there will be a recession at some point that people need to prepare for.
Yeah, well, this leads to what I was mentioning at the top of the segment, where it was on the Sunday shows that evil Ron Paul, Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, came out and said, "Hey guys, 34 trillion, that's a lot of money, and I don't know if our economy is in a position to even begin to make up for that money." What's your take on that?
Well, the problem is that the incentives are misaligned for politicians. Politicians want to have something to go back home to their voters for and say, hey, look, I did this. I spent this. But, and I gave you this. But right now the economy just cannot handle that. And there's going to come a point where U.S. bonds are just not as confident, or people are not as confident in them.
Is there anything go ahead, Davey.
Does the lack of confidence, I don't know if this is historically provable, does it happen gradually or does it happen almost from one day to the next? Like you wake up, you look in your bank account and you go, oh my God, I didn't realize how broke I am. Or does this occur over time?
It can occur both ways. What we saw with in 1987 is that the stock market fell in one day. So yes, that happens where it's a shock. But there's also times where we see there are signs ahead of time that people can look for.
Well, how will we know when the boom is about to be lowered?
Yeah, when do we go into the bomb shelters?
That's right.
Well, that's the ultimate question of economics, trying to figure out whenever the problem or when the boom goes to bust.
Well, yeah.
And that's true.
What do you think? If you had to guess for your bosses, what would you next year? What has to happen for it to happen?
Something in the economy has to break. A major sector right now it's looking like it's going to be commercial real estate. That is a big problem because of how we've seen these work from home policies go.
Oh man, and we can't convert that into housing. Lord knows we need that. We need those houses. I know people like to sleep at work, you know what I mean? Like live at the office, but converting that would probably help a lot of people. I don't know if that's even feasible.
No,
it is done. Financial.
It can be done, but so right after the bottom falls out, then we'll all go get wherever the rich people live and run them out of their houses and take them, right? Because that's going to be the battle cry in politics.
Yeah, that's when the buffet of eating the rich is going to happen, right?
Yeah,
let's end this on a happy note. Any silver linings here in this report?
As much as I would wish to say so, the only thing is that inflation seems to be slowing down. It's not coming down. Prices are still going up, but it is slowing down.
All right, Daniel, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. That's Daniel Elmore. He has an article in the Washington Examiner, The Discreet Erosion of U.S. Household Savings. You're listening to News Talk 710 KU.